So, man, we are live.
Awesome. What's going on, everybody? It's Ryan here, and I'm so excited for today. So excited, in fact, that I actually dressed up for the occasion here. I tore off the sleeves, I knew I was going to be all hot and sweaty, getting excited about this, so I threw on my exercise gear because we're going to get down and dirty and talk about building funnels. And there's really no better person on the planet than Mr. Todd Brown to be talking about this with us. So Todd, why don't you just say hello real quick, and I'll give folks a sense for what we're going to be covering today.
Hey, everybody. I'm glad to be here. We're going to have a blast. Get ready, get a pad and pen. We're going to go through just a tremendous amount of content all over the place in terms of funnels, but we are going to have some fun, and we're going to teach you some great stuff today. So
awesome.
Welcome.
So for anybody who's not familiar, I sent an email out about maybe a month and a half ago. Todd and I were going to do this hangout, and I sent out an email to our list and said, hey, if you have any questions that you'd like for us to cover, put them here. We're going to make sure that we cover them. We're going to do this hangout on Monday, and I think this was sometime in, mid-October maybe?
Yeah.
And I'm so jazzed up. Sunday night, I'm getting ready, putting the kids to bed, getting really excited about what's going on Monday morning, and then I get a text message. And the text message is from our good friend Andy Hassong, and he says, hey man, Todd's in the hospital. He's not sure if he can do the hangout tomorrow. And immediately my heart just completely sank, and I'm trying to be respectful of Todd's privacy, and I'm asking Andy, is he sharing any information? Like, I just want to make sure, is Todd okay? Forget about the hangout, that's fine. Just want to make sure he's okay. And Todd, I know it's okay to talk about this because you publicly shared it, but Todd suffered from a heart attack and really spent the last month and a half focused on his health. And I'm just so thankful that you're happy, you're healthy, you're here with us, man. And such a reminder that how precious our health is. And so I just wanted to say thank you for coming back on to do this show in spite of everything that you've been through, that your family's been through the last month, because I know people are so excited to be talking about what we're going to talk about today. So I just wanted to say thanks, man.
I appreciate that, dude. You're a blessing, man. I mean, you're absolutely right. And, I'll just say this for everybody. Ryan and I were chatting the other day, and we were talking about just this freakish experience, and it was like this whole heart attack thing was from a blood clot, so it wasn't like I was, eating like a slob and not exercising or anything. And, it puts things in perspective. And I hope that for each and every one of you that, even my, experience serves as a reminder for you. Like, remember why we're doing what we do, right? And this is not this is a means to an end. This is to give you a better life, to give you a more fulfilling life. And without your health, none of that matters. You can always make more money. You can always do more marketing. But if you let your health go, you've got nothing. And so hopefully this serves as a bit of a reminder and a bit of motivation for you.
No, absolutely. You're so right, man. And you and I talked about it, and I had a health scare 2 years ago, and for me, that was my wake-up call and really put a lot of things in perspective. So, thrilled to have you here. Most importantly, just glad that you're here and healthy. I want to talk about a few things that to give people a sense for what we're going to be talking about. We're going to go 12:06 now. We're going to go an hour. We're going to spend as much of the call answering live Q&A about anything related to building funnels, building your own funnels, answering questions that people submitted in advance. What we're going to be doing at the same time, for anybody who's a Next Level Mastermind member, I've got the Next Level Mastermind chat open right now in the Facebook group. So if you're on the call and you're a Next Level Mastermind member, log into the Facebook group. You'll see the pinned post where we'll be taking live Q&A right here on the call. And we're going to start with some Q&A that people submitted ahead of time. And I know, Todd, you got a flurry of questions that people had asked you as well. So I just want to start rapid fire, if that's okay. Just get into the meat of it all. And, I tell people there are only 2 other funnel experts in the world that I seriously pay attention to, and you are one of those 2 people. So I'm just as excited to learn myself today, to be a student as well as be the interviewer, the host in this experience as well. And at the end of this call, we've got some really important information for anybody who wants to spend a little bit more time with us later this week. We're going to be doing another session later this week, and I know you're going to talk a little bit more about what that is, what we're going to be covering, and everything like that. So let's dive right in. We had a question from Nate. Nate is a Next Level Mastermind member, and his question was related to lead magnets. And I'm just going to read his question to you verbatim, and I'll let you just have fun with it.
Sure.
So Nate's question was, what is your best advice, best practices when coming up with ideas for lead magnets? So for example, what form does your lead magnet usually take? Is it a report, a downloadable guide, a checklist? How much do you try to differentiate from your market in terms of format for the lead? And do you try to be different, or does it really not play a factor?
That's a great question and a well-articulated question. And so let me say this just very quickly, that I could see he's part of your Next Level Mastermind group. For anybody, I know we're not supposed to be talking about this, but that group is just badass, man. It really is. I'm to the point where I am envious of how good that group is, and so I can tell that question comes from a member. So I'm gonna give a different answer than probably what Nate was looking for, but I'm going to give the answer that I feel he really needs to hear. And let me preface my answer by saying this, that I think the way that two-step marketing is applied today, and two-step marketing for everybody is, it's exactly that. It's where there's typically a lead magnet offered, there's some widget, there's some information, there's some software that's offered in exchange for a prospect's contact information. Then that widget, that lead magnet is delivered, and then typically there is a marketing and sales follow-up process that comes thereafter. Well, I think that the way two-step marketing is applied today online is a bit of a distortion of the way that it was originally rolled out from guys like Dan Kennedy and Jay Abraham and Gary Halbert and all the old school masters. In that, today what you see is often a lot of marketers are focused on creating a lead magnet that has the most amount of appeal to the market. Their goal is to kind of get, to turn the most amount of their traffic into an opt-in, to get them on their list. And then after they do that, they're kind of taught to then kind of engage those opt-ins through marketing and sales and yada, yada, yada. Well, really, originally when two-step marketing was rolled out, the quote-unquote lead magnet was really the first piece in the marketing and sales funnel, meaning that there was no disconnect between, like, hey, I'm going to offer a piece of software, hey, I'm going to offer a report, or I'm going to offer a video, and then after they consume that, then I'm going to plug them into a marketing and sales system. No, the way it was originally done, it was one and the same. And so even today, when you see even big, typically non-direct response companies doing two-step marketing, even on television, pharmaceutical companies where you can request free information about a particular drug, what you get in the mail is the beginning of the marketing process. It is the beginning stage of that marketing funnel. And so first and foremost, whatever it is that you offer should be either be a piece of the marketing funnel, it should be the first piece in the marketing funnel, or in some cases, depending on how complex the product and offer is, it can be the gist of the marketing funnel. It could be the core educational piece. Now, with that being said, let me kind of take it a step further and kind of get to what I think is also the core of Nate's question, and that is, how important is differentiation in what it is that you're offering? And for time purposes, I'll say this, that my buddy Rich Sheffrin, who was a mentor of mine, and still is to some, to a lot of respects, he used to say that oftentimes it's better to be different than it is to be better. And so, That means that, like, look, if the bulk of your competitors in your marketplace are using on-camera video or using screen capture video or are doing ugly video sales letters, often rather than trying to improve on the process, it's better for you to be different. It's better for you to go in a different direction. And so, yeah, when possible, I strive to kind of zig when the market is zagging and zag when they're zigging. And so hope that gives Nate a little bit of insight into how I look at it.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is when they're zigging, you zag, and so it's not necessarily. And I love your answer about articulating how you're different rather than being better. This is one of the things that I'm a big fan of as well, because when you're talking about how you're better than the competition, it's always debatable, right? Because better is subjective. Better to whom? And that's one of the reasons why when I'm talking about the differences between, our product or a client's product and their competitors, I like focusing on talking about here's how we're different. And then you can let the prospect make up their mind on which option's better. Now, as skilled marketers, we can lead people down that path. Yeah. But when something is different, that's not debatable, right? Here's the difference. Ours is blue, theirs is red. That's a clear, definitive difference. It's not necessarily that red is better or blue is better. The prospect can make up their mind. So I'm a huge fan of what you said there. Second thing that I just want to emphasize about what you're talking about, the two-step marketing thing, it sort of reminds me of sending out, for example, a postcard campaign in direct mail to identify your possible buyers in a cost-effective way so you can decide where you're going to focus your follow-up marketing dollars. Yeah. That's what the lead magnet is for, right? Now, in online, it's a little bit more blurred because we don't have the same sort of hard costs. It's not like we have postage and printing costs to send out a direct mail sales letter, for example, to a huge swath of the market, but the same principle applies. We're putting a lead magnet out there to, across all the masses of people, identify who is our potential customer base. Once we've identified that, then everything follows up on that. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think you're right. People think about what's a great lead magnet? What are people going to really respond to? Well, I can put a PDF with the top 10 hottest celebrities naked, and I'm going to get a shitload of people who are going to download that thing, but none of them are going to be possible prospects. Now, I know it's an extreme example, but same sort of idea applies.
Yeah. And I think let me say one thing too, and I think that I love listening to you as well. I love listening to just varying perspectives because I'd be lying if I said that there was only one way to design an effective funnel, right? We know that that's not the case. There's a lot of different ways, whether it's a phenomenal survey, but it's interesting because I think that the idea of the lead magnet, it's in some ways tied into this idea of the list, right? Like oftentimes you hear marketers, especially newer marketers online, talk about and focus on like they've got to build their list. And typically in the IM space, the internet marketing community, when they say that, they're often referring to their prospect list, their opt-in list, their email list. And I think that, of course, we know that there's tremendous value, or there can be value in an email list, right? There's, a dollar value potentially to every prospect, to every customer on that list, if you're lead generating correctly and you're marketing correctly. But I think there's a point where some marketers can take it to the extreme, and that is that, look, there's a lot of marketers that have this idea, or they've bought into this idea that, you need to build a list before you can roll out a product, or before you can begin, before you execute on a marketing funnel, you should build up this mass of this mass of people, this list. And, that's just the complete antithesis of the way the real world of commerce works. First and foremost, if we were opening up a retail location, a true mom and pop brick and mortar location, we would never adopt the idea, the mindset of, well, let's build a following, let's build a tribe before we try to sell anybody anything. No, it's the through the selling, through the marketing, through attempting to generate that first transaction, that we're going to acquire a customer, that we're going to acquire some prospects, that we're going to develop that list. And so I think that you develop the list through your marketing and sales efforts, not the other way around. The other thing is that it's kind of funny, you and I, Ryan, we have a lot of similar mentors and people that we've learned from. Well, one of my mentors, and today I call him a good friend, Mark Ford, or Michael Masterson is his pen name. And it's funny when talking to Michael or Mark, and he's and picking his brain about how did Agora grow to be such this call it a $500 million a year behemoth. When he would talk about the list, and he would be talking about their list, he was always referring to their customer list. He was never referring to just their list of prospects. He was talking about the customer list. And so I think that it's important that that marketers pay attention to ultimately they're designing their funnels, they're designing their lead generation, they're designing the follow-up steps with that in mind, not just the list, but they're striving to acquire customers. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense.
That makes great sense. One last follow-up question on this topic, and then we'll move on, and it has to do with modality. So this is a question that came through in the Facebook group, and it's a multifaceted question, but I want to focus on this one element. When you're thinking about whether you're going to make something for a lead magnet a PDF, a text-based lead magnet, versus a video, versus an audio interview, what considerations are you giving? Are you creating whatever's fastest and easiest to create? Are you giving considerations to the product that you're intending on selling? So in other words, if you're going to create a video product, you create a video lead magnet. If you create a video product, you specifically create a PDF, so it's a different modality. Like, just walk us through your thought process. When Todd is creating a lead magnet, what thought process are you going through when it comes to modality?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Another great question. I think there's a couple of things that I consider, and I'll share with you how I go through this process with both consulting clients and coaching students. So first and foremost, one of the things that I think is crucial for everybody to consider is, what is your area of strength? And so if you look across the spectrum of marketing experts, you look at Ryan, you look at guys like Ben Settle, Andre Chaperon, you look at Frank Kern. What you'll find is that they are each individually very successful marketers, but they've got different areas of strength. And so for Ben, for Andre, they're able to do phenomenal work and generate phenomenal response just by email. Somebody like Frank Kern, who happens to be extremely charismatic, great on camera, he's able to generate a tremendous response from leveraging that. So first and foremost, I think that it's critical that you consider what is your area of strength if you're going to be the one to actually create it. So if you're not a strong writer, then it's probably not a wise idea to crank out a 30-page PDF. Same thing with video. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you are looking to see what is being distributed in your marketplace in terms of lead magnets. And so is everybody doing PDF? Is everybody doing video? I think that there's, depending on the maturity of the market, there's a couple of things that I consider there. Number one, I always want to put together a superior offer as it relates to the lead magnet. So just like an offer that we're looking to present, where we're selling to the market, I'm going to strive to put together a superior offer. So that might include a PDF and a video, right? Because I want to look around and I want to see what everybody else is offering, because I want mine to be more superior. I want it to also be different. However, there is value in looking at your competitors and seeing what modality, what channel they're using for their lead magnet, because look, if you're surrounded by savvy direct response marketers, then they've done work, they've done homework, they've paid to learn about the market. And so if they're leveraging a particular modality, there's a good shot that that's the modality that the market consumes via. But that I'm still going to look to offer a superior lead magnet by adding in something additional. The last thing that I'll say is that I'm a big believer in making sure that you never underestimate the task at hand when it comes to marketing online. It's one of the things that I share with my clients all the time, like never underestimate the task at hand. And so in this context, what that means is that there are lots of individuals that consume information by video. There are visual communicators, there are auditory communicators, there are kinesthetic communicators, and really you almost can't go wrong giving multiple options for people to consume your information because you cover the gamut. And so that's how I look at it.
That's really great advice. For me, I find that I fall into some perfectionistic tendencies in certain modalities. I'll just offer my perspective and then we can move on. So for me, I'm not a great video guy. As you can see, it looks like we were joking about this before we went live. It looks like my office is a prison with 4 walls and a computer inside it. It's just not who I am. I don't like to dress up my walls. This is, I worked out this morning, so this is like my uniform, so I don't get all dolled up. Clearly, I haven't shaven since Thanksgiving. I'm aspiring to the Todd Brown look, although I just look like a teenager with a puberty mustache. Todd has like a man beard. So for me, I find that I do like 100 takes when I do video because I'm really self-conscious about lighting and the way I look. So it's not good for me. At the same time, people know me as a copywriter, but I'm a slow writer. People who know me know that my copy takes a long time for me to write. So for me, the fastest medium that I'm best in is audio. I'm really good with audio. I can get my thoughts, and people say this, I can clearly articulate my thoughts really well in audio. So that gives me audio. It also gives me screen capture where I don't need to be on camera. So for me, I always want to do the other because I see other people doing it, and I find myself putting out my best work when I just use what I know that I'm good at. And then the other thing is too, it's one of the decision-making guidelines in my organization, which is just get it out there. Get it out there and get feedback, right? Which I know is tantamount to your funnel process in general, which is get feedback along the way so you can iterate. The first time out of the gate ain't going to be the perfect, right? It ain't going to be perfect. So get it out there, get feedback as soon as possible. So this is awesome. I'm getting like dozens of questions right now in the Facebook group, people who are rapid fire hitting me up faster than I can keep up. So let's dive to the next one on the list from folks that submitted in advance. So Andrew from the group writes, what's the best way to test different front ends? Can you talk a little bit about that?
As in the mechanics of that, or in terms of the idea?
Yeah, well, let's talk about let's talk about that first part, and then we'll talk about the second part. So Scott Lovingwood in the Facebook group asked, what's the most effective way to split test your funnel? So maybe we can talk about that. You can talk a little bit about there are a million tools and ways that you can split test. Maybe you could just talk about your preferred methodology. Let's tackle that first, the mechanics of actually running a split test on a front-end offer and get down. These are, remember, our audience is advanced, and so they're going to want to know what software do we use, how do you think about testing, and then maybe you could talk a little bit after we get into the mechanics into kind of which elements do you focus on testing? Do you focus on headline? Do you focus on, again, PDF versus video? Do you focus on, button copy? Like, what are the elements that you look to test first? Well, let's start with mechanics.
Cool. Yeah, well, and so all great questions, just awesome questions. First of all, just in no particular order, and I'll try to get these out, this way we can go through a lot of questions. Number one, I think that, first let me say this, as it relates to split testing. I think the idea of sticking strictly to things like button color and background color and all that, I think you are much better served focusing on testing the things that can have a serious and significant impact on your return on investment, on your bottom line. And so it is things like, of course, the big idea behind your funnel, to some degree that, that encompasses your hook. In other words, it's the premise, the entire premise and idea that you are bringing to the marketplace. The idea behind your marketing funnel is one of the most valuable things that you can test. The second thing is the offer itself, and that includes, of course, price point, that includes deliverables, that includes the type of offer, whether it's a hard offer or a soft offer, the type of risk reversal, type of guarantee, length of guarantee. And so when I think about split testing, a brand new funnel, for example, I always start with the big picture items. Now, initially, we typically will test the price point, right? Because we're gonna roll with the big idea. Like, we're not gonna strive to come up with two different big ideas, which requires some significant change to the funnel. So we typically start off with the price point, the actual offer itself. Now, as we're testing a new funnel, what we look at or what we decide to test next is based on what I call the optimization metrics. So I like to present this as this, that look at your funnel as a chain with multiple links, and in every chain there is one weakest link, right? The strength of that chain is totally determined by the strength of the weakest link. Does not matter how strong the other links are, your chain will only be as strong as that weakest link. And if you strengthen the other links, it will not strengthen that chain, because its strength is determined by the strength of that weakest link. In your funnel, you want to look for that weakest link. That's what we call the constraint. And so you want to look for that weakest link, and then that becomes what we focus our optimization efforts around going forward after we've tested that funnel. And so we look at the different what I call the different optimization metrics, which are the metrics that we only look at when we are about to optimize. And when I say optimize, I'm talking about split testing, right? Split testing, tracking, and looking for improvements. So for example, we might look at, let's say in a simple funnel, we might look at the opt-in rate, the sales conversion rate, the shopping cart abandonment rate, the take rate on the upsell 1 and 2, and that sort of thing. And we're looking for the constraint for the weak link. When we do split testing, the bulk of our split testing is done with Visual Website Optimizer. And typically, like I said, we don't do a lot of, at least, especially not early on, we don't do a lot of little split testing, meaning like, changing from a red button to a blue button, because it's funny, and I just want to throw this out. I have found that, like, we'll test a red button against, a blue button, and the blue button wins. And then we'll test a blue button against a green button, and the green button wins. But then we test the green button against the red button, and the red button wins. Now what? Right?
Back where we started.
Yeah, like, now what? So which one do we go with?
Right,
and I find that a lot of tests that, a lot of tests that guys, marketers share, if they did the same test in a month, they'd get vastly different results. And so that's why I think, you stick with the bigger picture things, the things that can legitimately change the game for you, right? And we know that, list, offer, copy. The three things that are critical with any direct response campaign: list, offer, copy. So even before you go in and start playing around with the nitty-gritty details of the copy, focus on the offer. Changing the offer from a hard offer to a soft offer can have a massive impact. Changing the premiums that you add in, changing the guarantee, changing, these things can have a massive impact on your bottom line, on your ROI. And so that's kind of how we approach it. Does that help?
Yeah, that's helpful. And one question that I have, just hearing you kind of walk through that, is I'm curious, how do you identify the weakest link? Is that based on your experience in multiple markets and funnels, and you kind of know what you might expect your opt-in rate to be, what you expect your sales conversion rate to be, and if it's much lower than what you expect it to be, that's where you kind of go first? Or how do you identify things?
Yeah, that is really, it's really, when we look at a number, and we know that when we look at those optimization metrics, and we look at them from beginning to end, and we see which number is farthest away from, let's call it, the norm.
Yep.
And the one that's the farthest away from the norm is the one that we typically will start our optimization efforts on. So if that's, if all the other numbers are closer to their norm, but the sales conversion rate is significantly off, then that's where we start. And so
Right.
not a
It's
whole
funny.
scientific method there.
No, no. Listen, I'll share a real example. I just went through this with a client 2 weeks ago, where we built out a survey funnel, and we try to get water flowing through the pipes. That's the analogy I like to use. Get water flowing through the pipes as soon as possible, so we can see where the leaks are. Right? Get water flowing through that plumbing system. That's when you can start to identify where the leaks. Well, we noticed that our survey funnel question-to-question rate was excellent. Exactly what I would expect it to be. The last step in the survey funnel, where people actually opt in, was actually about 10 points higher than what I normally expect it to be out of the gate. So that was great. Our sales conversion rate was a little bit low, but it wasn't that bad. It was maybe about 25% lower than I would expect out of the gate. But our big problem was survey starts. We weren't getting enough people to take up the survey, to just start the survey in the first place. And so that's where we decided to focus our attention first, was to get more people to take the survey, because we knew once if we could double the number of people taking the survey, I mean, we would be home free. We would be, counting $100 bills in the Caribbean. I mean, that's really what it was. Exactly. Yeah. So it was really that one metric. So another analogy I like to use is we put the sun's rays through the magnifying glass and focused all of our efforts on that one thing and made that 100% of our effort. Once we got that metric up, and it just happened to be at the front of the funnel, then we move on to the next lowest metric. Yeah. And so for us, I mean, I approach things very similarly. I'm glad you brought up VWO, Visual Website Optimizer, because that's one of the biggest questions that people have is, this is all great. I understand the theoretical part of split testing, but when the rubber hits the road, you got to have some tool that you use, and it's great to hear you that's the tool that's your go-to source for that.
Yep.
So that's awesome. Let's see. Next question that people asked in advance. Ed from the group asked, the most important part of the sales process is to find a starving, accessible market that can pay. What's the most efficient way to find these types of niches? Now, I know this is a question we could spend the next hour and a half talking about, but maybe you could just talk about maybe a few nuggets, when you're looking for either working with clients or in your own business, when you're looking for these starving, accessible crowds of people, what's one or two things that you do to try to find those groups?
Yeah, so, well, in no particular order. First and foremost, I want to see a history of buying behavior. And typically what I look for is direct response marketers that have been in that niche, in that universe, in that market for a nice chunk of time. And so, like, if let's say you go to Barnes and Noble or something like that, and you go and you take one of the magazines off the rack for Arthritis Today or whatever, and you flip through, and if you see that there are direct response offers in there, oftentimes, let's say you can go and get back issues. If you speak with any of these publications, we used to do this with trade publications with the professional niches that we operated in, and go back and look for a history of direct response ads, and we'll do the same thing online. And so you can use a tool like SpyFu to see, again, this history of direct response advertisements. I also, I'll look at, rather than give some basic answers. The other thing that I look for niches. So, because look, when you're, the Gary Halbert or John Carlton, and I like John Carlton's way of describing the niche, like a large, hungry mob of addicts flush with cash that are accessible. And even though I don't like the addicts part, but you get the imagery, and so large, right? It's big enough to support the type of business you want. It's a mob. They gather together. So there are Facebook groups, or there are forums, or there are magazines and publications and things that you can search online. They're hungry, meaning they can't get enough of it, right? They want more. They want more information, more guidance, more product. But the other thing, outside of the normal stuff that most of us know, I look for the opportunity to roll out recurring revenue. And so, for example, let's say if you let's take real estate agents. Right. Well, it's difficult for a real estate agent, a typical real estate agent, to roll out some kind of continuity club or offer
Right.
with their client base, because you buy a home and then you don't need that real estate agent for another 5 years or whatever it is, 8 years, when you need a home again. And
Right.
so that's one of the things that I look for. The other thing is, especially when dealing with a B2B, if you're gonna work with businesses, I look for like a high transaction value. I look for a high, let's say, lifetime customer value. So, for example, when I first started online many, many moons ago, I worked with massage therapists, and I taught massage therapists how to market and sell and grow their practices, and it was great. But I realized very quickly that they had a fairly low lifetime customer value, meaning their average clients were only worth a couple of $100. I think at the time it was like $300, give or take. Whereas, going to, let's say, cosmetic surgeons, they had multiples of that, right? So the average client for a cosmetic surgeon, the average patient, could have been worth $6,000. So what that means is that you can charge significantly higher price points with the cosmetic surgeons compared to massage therapists. And so those are some of the things to consider. You also want to consider things like churn and how quickly people come into the niche, right? Like how quickly are new people being introduced into the market. And one of the other things that a lot of marketers don't consider is how easy is it for people to leave the market. And so, meaning like if you look at personal trainers, the personal training niche, compared to, let's say, cosmetic surgeons, well, it's a lot easier for a personal trainer to become a personal trainer than a cosmetic surgeon. Therefore, it's a lot easier for them to leave. So with cosmetic surgeons, you have a lot more longevity with that audience than you do with personal trainers. And so those are some of the little additional things to consider.
No, that's great. Just hearing the way you describe it and your thought process, because I think, if you ask 10 really savvy direct response marketers at your level, you'll probably get maybe 70, 80% overlap in the answers that we'll all give.
Yeah.
But everybody has their own sort of nuanced things, and just hearing you describe that is extreme, really, really helpful. I'm just going to ask for a small favor, and I'm going to bring up one example just to provide a little bit of dimension around this. I'm getting a few comments on people. As much as people are enjoying my my exercise shirt, they're asking if we could switch the big screen over to you in the Google Hangout. I think the way you do that is if you just click so that the white squares are on your name instead of my name, and then we'll see your handsome face and your impressive library rather than my prison cell in the background.
I like it. Okay.
And my scruffy face. So that's the first thing. Second thing is when you're talking about demonstrated, what I think is really important is you're looking for competition. I think beginner marketers, and I made this mistake myself, and I'll give you two examples. Beginner marketers are looking for lack of competition. They're saying if there's no competition, I found a gold mine. Listen, let me tell you this. 7 billion people, 8 billion people, I don't even know what the number is. Someone can send it to me in the Facebook group. People in the world right now, if you think you've come up with an original idea, think again. There's at least 100,000 other people in the planet who have thought about that idea, and at least 10,000 of those people who have tried it. So forget about that. If it's not being done today, it's because someone tried it and it's not working. I made that mistake about a decade ago when I was looking at different markets, and one of the markets that I looked at was, because I was in these enthusiast markets, was the hummingbird enthusiast market. People who build hummingbird feeders and tracked it and photograph and everything like that. And you do the numbers on Google and you're saying, holy shit, I fucking hit a gold mine. There's like 1 million people a month searching for this. And then you go to Google and you type it in, nobody's advertising on it. You're like, oh my God, I hit a gold mine. I'm going to clean this thing up. No, I mean, I went down that path, and then they're just not people who buy. I mean, it's just, there's a reason why people aren't advertising. So I love that. And I think there probably is a sweet spot, something that I know you talk about in a little bit more advanced detail, which we don't have time to talk about today, whereas too much competition isn't good, no competition isn't good. There's kind of this window of opportunity, and I know you have certain kind of metrics and benchmarks that you're looking for when we do that. So I know we'll talk about that later.
So let me just say this really quick, Ryan, that I think you hit on a great point, very subtle, but a great point. And that is that I think that the right way to look at competition is, you look for competition so that, especially with direct response marketers, so that you can identify a market that buys, a market of buyers, right, where there's potential. So seeing competition should tell you that there are people that are spending money. The way you differentiate and stand out is going to be through your marketing and how you craft your marketing message, your big idea, your USP, all of that. So don't worry about, competition as like an insight into, well, how difficult or easy is it going to be to stand out and differentiate. No, that is just an indicator of, are there buyers or are there not buyers? Good, there are, because there's competition. Now we're going to strive to put together a message that does the differentiation for us.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. No, that's great. There are a few more questions that people submitted in advance, but I'm going to mix things up. I want to go to some of the live questions that people have asked in the group because there's some good ones in here. Okay, so Seth asked a question, two options. And there are two broad possible frameworks for building a funnel. One is, and he says, this is the biggest question I've ever had when it comes to building funnels. So cheap front end with essential model pricing. Maybe expand what that is for people who are not familiar with what that means. So cheap front end with an ascension pricing model versus a free front end and a high ticket back end. And in Seth's case, he's saying he sells high price coaching, consulting, and speaking. The pros and cons of a cheap front end, what Ryan Dice and Perry call a tripwire, what our good friend Ryan Lee likes to call a welcome mat, and how that increases your ability to upsell higher ticket items on the back end. Seth mentions most successful people that he knows selling high ticket items do not have a cheap front end, and that most people that he knows that have cheap front ends don't have products over $1,000. So of those two models, what's your take? When do you use the first model, cheap ascension? When do you use the second model, free to high price? Or do you recommend one over the other?
That's an awesome question. And I think there's room for both. I don't think that it's one or the other, that we use both. What I will tell you, so if I was forced to pick one, I would pick starting with a higher price product and going down from there. And the reason why is because of the psychology involved in starting with a high product and then going down from there. It reminds me of years ago when I was involved with Strategic Profits with my good buddy Rich Sheffrin, and we did a whole bunch of work with Jay Abraham. And I remember Jay would host, live $25,000 per person training events. And, you put on these great events and he'd market it and look to fill the room and all that stuff. But really the whole entire purpose of those $25,000 events was to be able to come back months later and offer the DVDs for $5,000 and have it be just an incredible over-the-top offer, because he was comparing it to, he was using the barometer of the $25,000 live ticket, and he used to sell them these $5,000 home study packages like crazy. But now, would he have sold them like crazy if there was no $25,000 benchmark? If his prospects hadn't been exposed to this $25,000 offer months prior when he was marketing it? And so I am a big believer in being able to take the cream off the top with your higher priced, and then you're able to go down. So if you look at, for example, you've talked about, you mentioned earlier on our six-figure funnel formula program. So that program is $497. The marketing funnel consists of, at its core, it consists of 4 videos, almost, your typical, let's say, Walker product launch formula, but this is an evergreen funnel where 3 of them are what we call education-based marketing or EBM content. The 4th video is the presentation of the product, the actual offer, so the sales vehicle. And it rocks for us. We've been running paid traffic, so cold traffic. We probably on the front end we bring back about $1.50 on the front end for every dollar we invest. Wow. So our goal is simply really always to break even on the on the front. But so what it allows us to do is it allows us to start with this $497 price point, then go down to a payment plan. We're getting ready with that particular funnel to roll out a $97 kind of condensed small version. And so at each, let's call it at each price drop, we're able to take some off the top. So at $497, we get clients. And again, keep in mind, we're putting those individuals through an upsell sequence as well. And the higher the price point that the main product is that they buy, the higher your price point can be with your upsell or your add-on sequence. So let me give you an example. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I think that this is valuable.
This is great, yeah.
I'm a huge believer in, let me say this. I'm not a huge fan in the upsell model that most marketers are taught. Meaning that what most marketers are taught is you can offer an upsell that is 3 times the price, up to 3 times the price of the product that a customer just bought. So if the customer just bought a product for $99, let's just say, what most marketers are taught to do is the first upsell can be $300. And then if the person takes advantage of that offer, you can offer them something for $900 or whatever it is, right? Up to three times the price point. But I'm going to call it my thesis on this is that nowhere in the world of commerce does that ever happen. That's not within the realm of experience that a consumer has, where nowhere do they go where they buy a product and then are they immediately offered something for 3 times what it is that they just paid.
You go to the grocery store and you put $100 worth of groceries in the bag, and then they say, "Hey, sir, would you also like to buy this nice $300 Seiko watch?"
Right, like exactly. Or hey, I see
upgrade to the Rolex.
Exactly. Hey, I see that you got $100 worth of groceries. Would you like this barbecue for $300? And yeah. And so I think that what happens is when a consumer online is exposed, especially in a direct response funnel where they're exposed to, they take advantage of a $100 offer, and then they're immediately presented with a $300 offer. They go into decision-making mode again, right? So I am a believer in what I call the reverse upsell. And the reverse upsell is really nothing more than it's kind of pricing it's not even an upsell. It's what I call an add-on. Yeah. And it falls within the realm of experience that consumers have. So typically the first add-on offer is 80% of the price, up to 80% of the price of the product that they just bought. So if they bought a product for $100, they're offered something as an add-on that is up to $80, right? So it's up to 80% of what it is that they just bought. So number one, there's a couple things and this is so important for everybody listening, so please stay with me here. So number one, right, we get a higher take rate on that offer because it is within the realm of what they typically experience with add-ons, right? Like, in other words, they're exposed to add-on offers, not 3 times upsell offers. So we get a higher take rate. So what happens is that usually at the end, right, we'll wind up with the same average transaction value as the marketer who is offering an upsell that's 2 or 3 times the price point of the prior product. Yep. Except there's a huge difference. And the huge difference is that a lot more of our new customers have taken advantage of our upsell, which means that they are, one, less likely to refund, because we found test after test that the folks that take advantage of an upsell refund at a significantly lower rate than the customers that just take the first offer and pass on the upsell. The second thing is that I believe, and this is not based on data, this is a belief, that's why I call this a thesis, that those individuals, the customers, are better quality customers, are better prepared for the first main back end offer because they've been exposed to more more of our stuff, or they've engaged more with our client. In other words, because we're getting more customers to take the upsell, right? So they're not just buying the little front end product, they're buying the front end and they're buying the upsell. If it's an information product driven business, they're being exposed to more teaching, more philosophy, more ideas. The bonding is there, the relationship building is there, and so so it is it's just a killer process. And so to kind of bring this full circle, so when you start high, even though you're using a reverse add-on, which is up to 80%, it's still a higher price, or a fairly high priced add-on offer. So it just becomes like a machine. And so I like to start high. I set the bar high, right? So you're not starting them off with, a $7, widget, and then trying to sell them on a $1,000 or $2,000 program when their first experience with you was a $7 widget. You're starting them high, and you can always go down from there, and then they feel like they're getting a bargain.
Right. So my question for you is this. I'm going to put you on the spot. What's the highest, most profitable, largest business in the world right now?
Wow. What is the most profitable business in the world?
Most profitable, largest business in the world. I think this is the company that produced the highest profit in 2013, or up till now in 2014. It's a pretty obvious choice. What would you think it is? I'll put you on the spot.
Is it Apple?
I would say it's Apple. Exactly. Now, have you purchased anything from Apple before?
Sure.
Yeah. So when you buy a computer, you spend $3,000 like I did, like a fucking idiot, on my MacBook Pro here. What do they hit you with afterwards?
Right, they hit you with the Apple Care.
The protection plan.
Yeah.
I'm spending $3,000 on this stupid thing. You think I'm gonna penny pinch on this Apple Protection Care that I just hope to hell that I'm never gonna have to freaking use? Of course I'm gonna spend it, right? And then I'm also gonna spend it on my wife's MacBook Pro as well. And what does that thing cost? $100, $200 a year, whatever the hell it is. So it's not your 80% model, but how many people do you think take them up on the Apple Care? And how much profit do you think is in that? And if Apple, the largest, most profitable company in the world, is doing something, to your example of this is a paradigm that we're used to in the real world, maybe we should pay attention, right?
Well
and so
said.
that's exactly what you're doing. You're saying you spend the big money up front, the second upsell becomes almost inconsequential. Now, conversation for another day. We can talk about how Apple upsells you from the Nano to the iPod to the iPhone to the fancy iPhone to the iPad to everything up to there. But we're talking about one-click upsells right now. So what I want to do is I want to spend about 1 minute going through about a few rapid-fire questions, and then I want to talk about what we're going to be doing later this week, because I'm really excited about what we got around the horizon. So real rapid-fire. When it comes to planning out your funnel, what do you use? Are you a computer guy, a whiteboard guy, a pen and paper guy?
Oh, man, that's a great question. I think at different stages I use different tools. And so I do like pen and paper. For some reason, I just tend to think better with a pad and a pen. But then I move from there typically to a mind map. And for some reason, I think it's maybe because it's not linear. It allows me to kind of flesh things out a little bit more. And then we typically finish up with like Lucid Chart, where we'll actually chart out the whole thing so we can see kind of a visual representation.
Awesome. One tip to do and one tip to avoid when it comes to using Facebook ads to get people into a strategy session. So I don't know if you have no direct experience with that right now, what you're doing, then feel free to hit a pass. But Facebook ads to strategy session, anything that you're seeing that's working, not working?
Well, I can't talk about Facebook, the actual advertising stuff, because I don't do that. We have somebody that does that. But what I can tell you that is working tremendous, and I'm sure your folks know are familiar with the model, but is driving folks to a webinar. And we've got clients that some clients that use just a free webinar. Like, in other words, they're driving folks from Facebook ads to a registration page for the webinar. Webinar is 90 minutes, and typically like 60 to 70 minutes is content, and then the last is pitch, which drives to an application, which drives to a strategy session. Some clients are using free. I would say the bulk of clients that are doing strategy sessions are doing free webinars. The minority are doing paid webinars, so they're looking for, they're qualifying individuals. And the bulk right now are doing non-paid strategy sessions. So application, based on the application that they fill out after the webinar. So the call to action at the end of the webinar is application. After the application, they'll approve some for the strategy session. They'll boot others, and typically, not paid. There's no fee for that.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, I'm being mindful of the time right now. This is such great stuff. I'm seeing questions pouring through, and I know we're not going to get a chance to answer all of them, but I know we'll have an opportunity to answer some more questions later this week on Wednesday. Tell us what we've got planned. What do we've got around the horizon coming right up Wednesday this week?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing an awesome in-depth training that's probably be 90 minutes. And we're going to talk about a lot of the deeper elements that we didn't really get a chance to talk about today. I'm going to talk a bunch about the big idea, which I believe, regardless of what tactical model you're using to build your funnel, regardless of whether you're using a high-priced, low-priced offer on the front, regardless of whether you're using a video series, PDF, survey or not, I believe it's the most important, most valuable thing that a marketer can understand. So understanding how to develop the big idea, how to spot the big idea, what are the criteria for the big idea. We're going to be going through understanding what hooks to utilize for your particular market prospects, including marketplace sophistication. We're going to talk about some of the higher level things like dynamic sequencing. Yeah, we're gonna get deep. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty of how I approach building funnels. We're even going to talk about the process to use for crafting the message, the 3 different things that your prospects need to believe before you even introduce your product, service, your offer. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And so somewhere on this page, there's a link that they can click to register. It's total freebie. I highly recommend that you be there. We're going to go at lightning pace, and we're going to really dive deep. And I know that I'm totally willing at the end of that to hang out and answer as many questions as we can possibly answer for you guys and gals. And so, yeah, you should be there. So click that button, link somewhere below this video.
Guys, listen, I cannot recommend enough that you register for this now, and I'll tell you the reason why. So it's been a month and a half that I've been dying to do this webinar with Todd. No morbid pun intended there. I mean, we were literally, scheduled to do this thing, and I was so excited because, like I said, and I'm not just saying this to say it. There are literally only 2 other funnel experts that I really pay close attention to what they're doing, because they're guys that know their stuff and they're actually practicing what they preach. And Todd is one of these guys. I mean, listen, I got excited on this call just hearing him say that his Facebook funnel that he's using to run people into his $497 6-figure funnel product, he's putting $1 in and he's making $1.50 out. I'll tell you right now, that ain't easy. Like, that just doesn't happen. So in order to get to that point, you really got to know your stuff. So I can't highly recommend it enough. If you're on this right now, register for that call. There's a link, there's a button below this video. I don't have it on my screen because I have the presentation screen. I don't have the attendee screen in front of me. So go ahead and do that now. Yassine, if you're in the call, if you could do me a favor and post in the Facebook group, in the chat right now, so people can actually get, all right, awesome. Yassine's the man. I mean, he's already ahead of me. He's like reading my mind. He put the link there, marketingfunnelautomation.leadpages.net / It's a big, long link, but go ahead, register for that now. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be taking lots of notes myself. Like I said, this gets my highest endorsement, highest recommendation. And the way you want to look at what we're going to be covering with Todd is this. So what I teach is like an elective course, right? So if you are studying a new topic, like for example, I studied neuroscience in college. So what I teach is like maybe Neuro 103, neuromicrobiology, right? So this is like an elective topic on a very specific subset of what you need to know. Most people enter into this world, into my audience, sort of studying that first, okay? You really need Neuro 1. Neuro 1 is the fundamentals, okay? If you don't have the fundamentals right, nothing else matters. It's like guys that play sports, play basketball, play soccer. They never mastered the fundamentals. Their ceiling is limited. Todd gives you all the fundamentals better than anybody out there. He teaches you everything you need to know. Crafting your big idea, crafting your offer, how to sequence things. I know a few questions people asked that we didn't ever get a chance to talk to today. How many steps should be involved between, the first point of contact to asking for the sale, upsells, downsells, retargeting, cart abandonment, Todd has this thing down soup to nuts. He is the guy that I study when covering the fundamentals. He's also the guy that I put people in my organization and direct them to as well. And I put them through his training program. So that should tell you, I'm not going to recreate the wheel and try to create something because Todd has really nailed it. He's going to be going as in-depth as he can on Wednesday this week, and we're just lucky to have him for an hour and a half. So that's my pitch for you to be there. I guess my highest endorsement, Todd. I just want to say thanks so much, my man, for taking time out of your busy schedule today on this Monday to spend some time with us, and I'm looking forward to hanging out on Wednesday.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, dude. I gotta say, man, it's so funny to hear you talk about me because that's the way I talk about you. And yeah, no, it's so funny to me, man. And yeah, I'm a big mush. I'm ready to. You're getting me choked up over here. So no, man, I appreciate it. I'm just, like you, man. I love what we do. I love that we get the opportunity to really help people and show people the right way to do things. And that's what we're going to do on Wednesday. Each and every one of you should be there. I promise you that it will be worth more than lots and lots of paid programs. And I will do everything in my power to answer all of your questions by the time we are done on Wednesday. So I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me and listening to me babble over here. And for everybody, thanks for hanging with us. It's amazing how many people were here today. I got to see the numbers. It was crazy. It was just over 200 people at one point were here, which was awesome to see. And so I will see each and every one of you guys and gals on Wednesday. So thank you, everybody.
Awesome, my man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
talk to you on Wednesday.
You
Bye.
got it, man. Bye-bye.